Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream. Thank you so much for joining me for another live stream. Thank you to all of our members, subscribers, viewers, and new viewers, new subscribers as well. Let's give ourselves a minute just to make sure everything's... here we are, nice and up and running. YouTube is doing a better job lately. Again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for another live stream. I wanted to cover a couple of topics in this live stream. For those of you who are new, I obviously have live streams and videos, shorter videos with certain updates, quick updates for anyone who likes and prefers shorter videos. And obviously live streams to have an extended talk, a more detailed talk. And obviously open the space up for the community to share your thoughts and views and obviously ask questions. I think it's important for people to be able to obviously talk and communicate and have a platform to share their thoughts in, especially at a time where the truth is being suppressed. Obviously, you have a lot of propaganda on mainstream media. And it's important for people to have platforms to talk on and share their views freely. So, in this live stream, and obviously I'll talk about these subjects and then I'll open the space up for you. I wanted to cover a couple of topics here. Cover speech that the Secretary General of Hezbollah had in a conference to commemorate the martyrs that was held in Iran, in Mashhad. He had a speech alongside a couple of other figures. Now, Nasrallah is being portrayed as a person who is overconfident by some of the people in the US. I recently heard a report that US officials and European officials are going to Lebanon and warning Hezbollah. Instead of warning the reckless genocidal state as confirmed by international law, they go and warn the resistance, the people who resist. Resisting what? Resisting this genocide state. So instead of going directly to the culprit and the criminal, the illegal criminal, the apartheid supremacist genocidal state, they go to the resistance and they blame the resistance and I don't view personally the Secretary General of Hezbollah as a person who's overconfident. I would say he's confident. Overconfident is linked to doing certain things that are not calculated, by the way. And what the Lebanese resistance has been doing with Israel in the past 8 months has been very calculated, extremely calculated, very specific, very targeted. The only reckless state, totally reckless state in the region is Israel. Yeah, you can criticize other states and you can talk about authoritarianism and whatever, but recklessness, they're the cause of the problems. They are the ones who attack left, right, and center. And I want to give you a couple of details about the previous major general in the Israeli army, Itzhak Brik. I've been quoting him many times in my videos. He's one of those people in the military establishment in Israel who has more reasonable views when it comes to the outlook on the war and what's happening. And he says things as they are. He doesn't sugarcoat things and he does not sell delusions to the people. And he is in constant communication with the people on the ground. By the way, the people who are actively participating in Gaza talk to him because they talk to him and they trust him more than they do Benjamin Netanyahu. Israel's facing a lot of problems now, especially with the lack of trust from the people in the government and obviously people who serve in the government, especially with these conflicts at the top, let alone when it comes to the people on the ground. And I also wanted to speak with you about the ties that are getting closer and closer between Turkey and Syria, how they're linked with the ties that are happening between Turkey and Egypt, and why they're happening now. So it's going to be a little bit longer than usual, and again, obviously this live stream is our extended version, so we have a bit more time to share more things. I prefer to have them these topics all in one instead of having separate videos about them, because I'm sure some of you would like to have an input about them. I'm going to start off with the Secretary General of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah. He obviously had a televised speech in that was for the event that was held in Iran. A couple of details from his speech. Hezbollah Secretary General, and that's from Hezbollah's website, Al-Manar, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah stressed that the achievements and victories in the region have put the nation on the path to great and final victory, which means liberating Palestine from the Zionist occupation and liberating our entire region from American hegemony and domination. His message to the International Conference of Martyrs for the Defense of the Holy Mosque and the Resistance Front in Mashhad, read by Hezbollah's representative in Iran, Abdullah Safiyuddin. Sayyid Nasrallah stressed that this final victory requires continued work and struggle without getting tired or bored, and requires more time, of course, and that we are very confident and certain of God Almighty's promise to the true believers of victory and help. Mr. Nasrallah stressed that this victory requires our unity and integration, and no one should hesitate, weaken, or stop after these sacrifices. Sayyid Nasrallah also said, "We are the oppressed peoples of this region, attacked by the great Satan and the Zionists, and in this time we are blessed with a great divine opportunity, which is the blessed Islamic Republic of Iran, with its sacred system, as he described it, and its sacrificial people who sacrifice, and with the presence of this wise, brave, and guided leader, Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei." Sayyid Nasrallah added in his message, quote, "We are all confident that our martyrs are alive and provided for by our Lord. On the other hand, we see their achievements and what their blood has achieved present at the moment and before us every day, and the victories and the liberation they have given us." He also added, "We are facing the blood that triumphed over the swords of tyrants and oppressors, and its honorable martyrs achieved both good things, victory and martyrdom combined." He added, "We are proud of the martyrs and what they offered, and we are also proud of the families of the martyrs who faced their loved ones and dear ones with beautiful patience and complete submission to the will of God Almighty, and pride in God Almighty's selection of these beloved ones." He said, the most honorable people in all arenas and countries of the resistance fronts, we must realize the magnitude of the achievements and victories that have been achieved so far and that have accumulated over decades, especially since the victory of the Islamic Revolution of Iran under the leadership of Imam Khomeini. He finished off by saying, "Today our people in the Gaza Strip and occupied Palestine are suffering tens of thousands of martyrs and wounded, along with displacement, hunger, siege, and acts of genocide. And they are supported by the resistance fronts, especially in Lebanon, Yemen, and Iraq." These were the key things that Hassan Nasrallah stated in his speech, clearly signaling that we are witnessing a battle which is historic towards the liberation of Palestine. Now, how do we compare that with his first speech, for example, after he he started to comment about Hezbollah's participation after the 7th of October, which was 1 month in. At the time, he was calling what's happening an escalation, but not the final war. Not the final war. Now, this tone is slowly developing, and we're hearing more statements about the full liberation of Palestine, ending US hegemony, ending US dominance in the region. We are also getting the same feedback and the same use of terminology from Hamas leaders, who are also saying we're going to continue up until Palestine is liberated and we have a Palestinian state with Jerusalem as its capital, not East Jerusalem, which is the term commonly used when people describe the two-state solution, but Jerusalem and all of the Palestinian territory, including the return of the refugees. Clearly, the resistance fronts are confident and they are seeing what's happening when it comes to Israel, and they are seeing the weak points. They're seeing the US slowly but surely departing from the region as well. This was the first thing that I wanted to cover with you. The second thing that I wanted to cover here is Yitzhak Brik. Yitzhak Brik is an Israeli Major General. I've been quoting him since the beginning of this war. This man anticipated the 7th of October. He warned Israeli leaders from the 7th of October previously many times. He was very critical of how things are being managed by the Israeli leaders. He is very critical of Benjamin Netanyahu, although he had 6 calls with Benjamin Netanyahu since the beginning of this war, although he very much does not agree with him. As a matter of fact, he dislikes Benjamin Netanyahu, but probably feeling the responsibility. He was speaking with him for so many times. He said the commanders, the leaders of the brigades and the soldiers from the field, and they tell me what's happening. They tell me what's happening every minute. Yesterday, that he said that in an interview on live Israeli television, by the way. One of the commanders spoke to me and said, Brik, listen, I constantly listen to what you say, and I agree with you 100%. I'm in Rafah, and you're very correct in every word that you're saying about the situation in Rafah. Now, I previously posted a video about the commander of the 12th Brigade in Israel and what he said about Rafah. Obviously, that's filtered because the man can't be completely free in what he says because he's still serving, whereas a Brik does not. He said that this commander also told him that they are deceiving the public and they are not telling the people the truth, that we are losing. We are not seeing Hamas fighters, according to him. They don't even stand in front of us, as he described to Brik. He said that all of the reports about the army killing 100, 200 people here and there are not correct. They are under the ground, Hamas and the Palestinian resistance. They go out, they attack us, they launch missiles, they have booby-trapped homes, they explode them, and they explode these devices in our forces. And we are killed. We are being killed because the tunnels are not being shut. The tunnels that are going to Sinai are not being shut. These tunnels that they describe as the oxygen of Hamas, in which they obviously pass weapons and munition that they need. He also told him, this commander told Major General Brik, the army says that they controlled the Philadelphia corridor and they closed the tunnels, and that's also not true. To shut these tunnels, you need to have a canal 9 kilometers wide and 50 meters deep. And again, that's according to his assumption. We have reports that no one really knows how deep the tunnels are. He said because these tunnels, according to him, are 50 meters under the ground, some of them, according to that commander. and you have all of the weapons, all of the equipment that they need coming through these tunnels, and the army is not intending on digging a canal that is 9 kilometers wide and 50 meters deep in the ground. Are they tricking us? He was asked. He said, General Brick, they are deceiving the public. They are lying, blatantly lying to the public, to the Israeli public, in a very harsh criticism, not only against Benjamin Netanyahu, but against also the leaders of the army in Israel and the people who run the government. That was the second thing that I wanted to talk to you about. Clearly, you still have people who describe things almost as they are in Israel. But again, Benjamin Netanyahu, although this person specifically spoke with him multiple times, he doesn't get any feedback. As a matter of fact, Benjamin Netanyahu and many mainstream media almost do not address the fact that Israel has intense protests every single day. Today, tens of thousands of people in multiple cities in Israel protesting, reach a deal with Hamas, get it over and done with. Again, they were dispersed by the police. They were becoming more violent with them. And Benjamin Netanyahu behaves as, they don't exist. Alongside mainstream media. Now compare this attitude of Western mainstream media and Western politicians and people in power to certain protests in countries that they do not like. They would have told you, regime change from yesterday and we need to intervene, we need to save the people. Why aren't you talking about saving the Israeli people? Isn't that something interesting, by the way? You claim you're interested in the Israeli people. Why are you not supporting the Israeli protesters? And why are you not holding the Israeli government responsible for the slaughter of Israelis who are in Gaza? We had so many evidence being published that Israel kills its people, and they killed over 100 Israelis who are held by the resistance in Gaza. That's apart from the witness statements from the 7th of October about the Israeli massacres on the 7th of October against the Israeli civilians, and the people, the witnesses, the Israelis who survived the 7th of October or were in Gaza, and at least confirming that we were shot at during the way, and then later, obviously, the Israeli pilots confirming that we were ordered to shoot at everything going to Gaza, including Israeli soldiers. They don't talk about these things. They only talk about Hamas. That was the second thing that I wanted to talk to you about. The third thing that I want to talk to you about is Erdogan and Syria. Erdogan had very high tensions with Syria after the Syrian revolution began. That became a civil war, and then all of this mess happened and many countries intervened. Turkey obviously has forces in Syria to keep what they call obviously the peace. They don't want problems with certain Kurdish movements with aspirations to have certain independence in parts of Syria. That stretch to Turkey, they view that as a big problem for them. And obviously it's not only Turkey is there, Iran is there, the US is there, Russia is there. Obviously lots of intel agencies from countries are in Syria as well. However, now, and before, by the way, before all of that, Turkey and Syria had good relations. They were meeting regularly. But now you're talking about officially reinstating the diplomatic ties and the relations between them. And before I get into it, what is the context? The context is very important. I always talk about context. When is this coming? What's happening? Well, it's coming after this Israeli aggression, a massive Israeli aggression, this massive US support, this blind Western support for this genocidal state, for its crimes, and the countries, even the countries who haven't participated like actively in ending the genocide, apart from certain actions here and there, they are feeling what's happening, they're seeing what's happening, and they're preparing for what's coming. And we're talking about here the closest countries. Syria, obviously, already has certain feuds with Israel. Egypt, Turkey. Turkey recently also refreshed its relations with Egypt. They had a problem with Egypt after the military coup that took down the democratically elected Muslim Brotherhood government. They were very critical of Egypt. They were hosting key figures in the Egyptian opposition. And now you had this historic visit of the Turkish president in Egypt not long ago. You had the establishment of a strategic cooperation council between Turkey and Egypt. You have Egypt supplying the Egyptian government with its most advanced UAVs. All of that, what is it for? After what? It's after this genocide is going, and they're seeing the alliances that are happening. Now, that doesn't mean they automatically align on everything, but clearly they're seeing the mutual threat, and they realize that this unconditional support, this blind Western support for Israel, will also be a blind support for Israel, not just against the Gazans, but against other countries too. Now, obviously, we have the warnings, we have the statements, we have conflicting statements. You need to read between the lines. Talks about de-escalation, talk about escalation when it comes to the American administration and the Israeli leaders, including Yoav Gallant. Now we have reports that he had a telling off in the U.S., telling him don't dare and don't go to Lebanon. You can't go to Lebanon. Simultaneously with the report that they still supplied them with 14,000 MK-84 one-ton bombs. So things are mixed, but at the end of the day, you're seeing what's happening. Israel's still there. They're still being supported. Nowhere near enough pressure is being applied on them from mostly Western powers. Turkey understands that. Syria obviously understands that. And Egypt understands that as well, regardless of what they do and what they do not do. Again, this is reading what's happening. So this report that we had on Al Jazeera, actually, in this report, they spoke about this recent development. It's been in the works for some time now, but clearly it's coming to fruition, and Erdogan and Assad are getting closer, and it looks like they might also have a meeting. They said Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said on Friday that there is no reason not to establish relations between Turkey and Syria, indicating that he does not rule out the possibility of holding a meeting with the Syrian counterpart Bashar al-Assad to help restore bilateral relations between the two countries. Turkey severed ties with Syria after 2011 and has backed opponents of the Assad regime. It has also carried out several cross-border military operations against Kurdish YPG militants, which it says are linked to the Kurdish Workers' Party, or the PKK, and threatens national security, and has established a safe zone in northern Syria where Turkish troops are now stationed. But in light of a regional campaign aimed at normalizing relations with the Gulf states, Turkey also says that it may restore relations with Damascus if progress is made in the fight against what they call terrorism, obviously, in the safe and voluntary return of millions of refugees hosted by Turkey, and in the political track as well. Erdogan said in a statement after Friday prayers in Istanbul in response to a journalist's question about Assad's statements that Syria is open to all initiatives aimed at improving its relations with Turkey, quote, "There is no reason not to establish relations. In other words, we are ready to work together to develop these relations with Syria now the same way we also worked in the past." He added, quote, "We can never have any intention or goal such as interfering in internal affairs of Syria," end quote, noting that the Turkish and Syrian peoples are brothers and live side by side. He also added, quote, "We also kept our relations with Syria very lively in the past, and as you know, we held meetings with Mr. Assad and even family meetings, and it is impossible to say that this will not happen in the future, but it could happen. That's in accordance to this report and the statements that came from Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, clearly signaling that the countries surrounding Israel are seeing what's happening. They're seeing a bigger event coming, a bigger shift. You already have alliances. The level of support Israel got from the UK and is still getting from the US and is still getting from the US and the UK, obviously to a lesser extent than the US, because the US is taking the role of the protector. Israel, it's as if it's a state for the United States. Clearly, they are seeing where things are going and they are establishing ties. There is obviously an argument that Turkey was reviewing its relations throughout the years. It's been obviously over a decade now since these tensions began. The situation following the Arab Spring, what's labeled as the Arab Spring, and the uprisings and revolutions that happened. And you're talking about a change that was coming to an extent. However, the fact that we are seeing actions now is undeniably linked to what Israel is doing and the level of support that it's getting from the US and from Western countries as well. These were the things that I wanted to share with you tonight. Let me open the space up for you and have a look at your comments. If you wouldn't mind, if you have anything for me, if you wouldn't mind just highlighting it with a red emoji, ideally, so I can quickly see it. And firstly, thank you so much for Sumaira Ali for your super thanks. Much appreciated. Long live the resistance, you said. Thank you so much for your super thanks. I really appreciate that. Let's see where we are. And again, welcome everyone to the live stream. Thank you for everyone greeting as well from the beginning. And thank you to all of our regular live streamers too. Judith said, people are oppressed by religion. What gives you the right to persecute people? We need freedom from this religious tyranny. I would disagree with that. The notion of a religion being the problem is not the case. I think it's the religious establishments or certain interpretations of religion. Religion is something, obviously it depends on which religion. Now that's number one. Secondly, you're talking about millions, if not billions of followers, many denominations in many cases that you might agree or disagree with, and also very broad interpretations. Now each person would have his or her own interpretation based on their limited, obviously, experience, level of knowledge, and desires. Now, when you talk about establishments, on the other hand, or states acting in the name of religion, this is where the problems start, because then it's a very easy tool to manipulate and control people with. And people in power usually strive to control the people without having too much criticism and, without having a hard time. And what's an easier way to do it than by saying, I'm acting in the name of God. So if you argue with me, you're arguing with God. That's where the problem lies. And this problem is cross-religious, and it's not restricted to religions as well. It's also there with secular governments. People persecuted people massively in the name of secularism, in the name of communism. Tens of millions were killed by secular people. So the notion that it's only religions, I don't agree with that. It's how they are interpreted and how they are misused, obviously, when it comes to certain people, but primarily establishments and governments. Judith, thank you so much for that notion. Sarah Khalid saying, as an American whose family comes from Yemen and occupied Golan Heights in Syria, I'm more angry than ever because of the way the US chose to act towards Israel when millions live under such hate in Zionism. I totally understand that. The people in the Golan Heights, by the way, who are occupied by Israel, they don't even have identity. They don't have nationalities, basically. Laissez-passer, they call it. And these people have been deprived of so many things. Obviously, Yemen faced so many problems. But again, it's not surprising. This support was there from a very long time ago. They know very well what's happening, but they still support it. Because many people who supported in these powers and in these governments share the same type of ideology, same set of beliefs that Zionism has. They openly declare that they're Zionists. It's one of the most absurd things, by the way, someone declaring that I am a Zionist, ruling a country, right? Openly admitting to embrace an ideology of supremacy, of violence, of hate, of occupation. And they're ruling your country. Abdul Haq towards a borderless one ummah. I would also extend that to a borderless one world. Keep checks, keep your measures, your security measures, what have you, but yeah, open. Let people go to different places. Last century, in the beginning of the 20th century, hardly any country had any passport. Right? God created Earth for us to travel everywhere. It's not something that a certain person owns or whatever. But then obviously you started coming up with this nationalism and what have you. Again, to divide and control people. In the early 20th century, only the Ottoman Empire, and I think it was also Switzerland, who had passports or documents, travel documents. And again, not all of the population. But then obviously after World War I, World War II, you had these maps, these nations, these states. And obviously in the Middle East, it was so evident, by the way, regardless of anything historical. Aini Anwar, thank you so much for your super thanks. And Lime Fruit as well, thank you so much for your super thanks. I'm sorry I missed some of them. How am I missing them? Yes, Sumera, Daniela, Lime Fruit, and Aini, thank you so much for your super thanks. Zach is saying, what are your thoughts on Al-Shabaab declaring war on Israel and pledging to supply Iranian arms to Israel? Both of these statements seem contradicting. And this group is very suspicious. From my humble, obviously, research on them previously, so I haven't looked into them too much, but I take them with a pinch of salt. But again, how can they declare war on Israel and pledge to supply Iranian arms to Israel at the same time? This is what I don't really get. That's from Zach. Jubomir Zuna saying, do you hear Netanyahu that Iran want to conquer the Middle East? Netanyahu has always been spreading Iranophobia, Islamophobia, everything to deflect. You see, this is a strategy that they do. It's a core strategy. Blame your enemy with everything that you do. Deny everything, deflect, blame your enemy with everything that you do. This is what Israel always does. Iran wants to conquer the Middle East. Obviously, you can have an argument or a debate as to Iran, their policy in the Middle East, what they're doing. Valid, fine. However, that's deflecting from the fact that we have a genocide here. And that's not a reason to say that everything that Iran obviously does is wrong, right? Some people fall into this trap. They fall into this trap from a sectarian perspective. They fall into this trap from a political perspective. And they support Israel by doing that. And they obviously deny everything that they do as if nothing is effective. They can't see that what's happening now is unprecedented. We have historical changes now in the Middle East, even at a global level. But typical, he always does that. Marvin Berg is saying, I heard Golan Heights supplies water to Israel. If Israel lose that, what are the other sources for them? Desalination plant. Well, they have other options too. Obviously, Israel relies heavily on the Tiberias Lake for water. That's been dropping. I mean, they work a lot to preserve as much as possible, but they can come up with certain alternatives, Israel. But Israel always looks to diversify. They obviously have desalination technology. They have certain technologies, but they also still, with regardless to the technologies that they have, they try and diversify their possession and control over water. They do the same thing in the West Bank. In the West Bank, you will see that most settlements control water, whereas the Palestinians sometimes suffer due to lack of water. Not just that, they deliberately cut water off the Palestinians to a level where they will go and fill a water well with cement on a certain village. Imagine the levels of depravity of this state. So you'll have a small village relying on this water well in the West Bank, a Palestinian village, and if Israel has already controlled all of the water sources in the West Bank, they'll go and fill it with cement so that the people can't drink. This is what they do. And again, all of that is deliberate and calculated to make life difficult, to force people out, to make life as miserable as possible for them. And then they're surprised why they attack them, or why they respond, or why they resist. FP saying US and UK want to back Israel over ICJ ruling. Do you think it is because they could be next in line as aiders and abettors? Your thoughts? I actually haven't heard that yet. Obviously, if they do take that, they have been with their statements saying that, it's not productive, at least, and things like that. Obviously, the US was harsher as well than the UK, but both of them definitely support Israel and don't want that to go ahead. If they actually do go and provide defense, would be a very shameful, obviously, act. But of course, because the UK and the US, they have bigger war criminals than Netanyahu. Tony Blair is a bigger war criminal than Netanyahu. Bush is a bigger criminal than Netanyahu, alongside other heads of state and leaders, prime ministers, presidents of state. So these people committed far bigger crimes than Israel, and they obviously don't want implications. But again, they are the same people who know the ICJ. I wouldn't be surprised if they're the same people who called Karim Khan and told him the ICC, that's in the ICC, not the ICJ, is for Africa and thugs like Putin, not for the West. What does that mean? That the international law is on black people and East European Putin, right? Russian Putin, or countries that you don't like, or countries with less capability. And what does that mean if that's the case? So, oh, Zach, you're saying I meant Yemen. You meant Yemen when it comes to supporting the resistance? Supply Iranian arms to Yemen. The Shabab. Yeah, that would make more sense, obviously. But again, we will see with the actions. Like I said, about this organization in particular, I have my reservations about them. But again, I don't know them in too much detail, so I can't give you a final verdict on them. But again, we will see, these movements, if they want to do something, or we will see, and we will obviously establish our understanding based on their actions. And Golden Sun, thank you so much for your super thanks. You said, love your work, brah. Hello from A2 Michigan. Thank you so much. And greetings to everyone listening and viewing from Michigan. Thank you for your super thanks. FP. Now we got FP. And Imru Gamer, thank you so much for your super thanks as well. Much appreciated. Love and respect, brother Mahmoud. Much love and much respect to you, my friend. Thank you so much for this. Marvin saying, been seeing a lot of Yemeni attacks on shipping. Isn't the UK, US providing some kind of protection? Has shipping to Zion slowed down? I hope so. It slowed down greatly. We're talking about 90%. And not just Israel now, because many people are reluctant to deal with that route, although Yemenis declared that they're only targeting Israel and Israel-linked ships, and they're not trying to affect global trade. However, Israel and its supporters have been trying so many ways to trigger them, as in some of the ships have been going, docking at a certain port, and only then going to Israel. But that's why they went into stage 4, and they said we are targeting everyone in the Mediterranean that deals with Israel too. Obviously, they participated. That's why we call them the Genocide Coalition, because they went there to prevent a perfectly legal action being taken against Israel, blockade against the genocidal state as confirmed by international law. Instead of them actually respecting international law, the US and the UK and this Genocide Coalition, they go against international law, and they go and support this genocidal state, and they go and attack Yemen, and they kill innocent Yemenis as well. It's been highly effective, and neither the US nor the UK have an answer to what they're doing. And what the Yemenis are doing is something that Western powers who always bang on about democracy and human rights should be doing, and international law. Clearly, they have no respect for democracy, they don't have any respect for human rights, and they don't have any respect for international law. And that's why the Yemenis are stepping up, and that's why the resistance movements in that region are stepping up. And Ray Husseini, thank you so much for your super thanks. Juror number 6 saying, brother, do you know what the Baha'i community is saying? Are they allowed to say anything at all? The Baha'i community is a community that does not participate in politics. They have a very important base in Haifa, actually, my native city. Beautiful gardens, nevertheless. But and I met many of their community members, and I met some of their community leaders as well. Some of the leaders are American, by the way, and they do not talk about politics. That's their position. They do not participate in politics, and even if you want to have a conversation with one of them, like there was one of their representatives, I was in a certain kind of gathering, and they wouldn't even speak about it in closed doors. These are the people who I at least had the experience with. Miguel Garcia is saying, I read an article saying that the the UK increased military flights from Cyprus to Lebanon. Do you think they might be arming anti-Hezbollah militias? The UK is playing a very dangerous role, a very complicit role with this genocide instead of playing a role to prevent the genocide. The UK had over 200 flights over Gaza. And these 200 flights, instead of them documenting Israel's genocide and providing more evidence to the ICJ, they've been there to serve Israel. Thousands of hours of intelligence for Israel. They were participants, reportedly, in the massacre that led to the release of 4 Israelis and the killing of 3 Israelis at the same time, with the slaughter of 270 Palestinians. They were participants because they were helping them with intel. Now they're doing the same thing in terms of intel with Hezbollah. Some people overestimate how effective these flights are. The fact that they've conducted 200 flights over Gaza with the most advanced spy planes in the world since the 7th of October, and the resistance is still there, shows you that they have very limited capabilities. That's number one. Number two, with Hezbollah, you're having some people, by the way, in Lebanon. You see, some people in Lebanon baffle me. News networks, they are telling you, oh, they know exactly where Hezbollah go. They know this and they know that. Now, they might have weak points, Hezbollah. Some of their members might do things that are totally wrong, like holding cell phones or whatever. You don't do cell phones when you are doing anything where you don't want to be detected. You don't do devices, any electronic device. So they say that they know exactly where everyone. Again, that's not true. They will support to an extent. They have certain technology, but all of that is limited. Plus, if you're talking about Hezbollah, even if the UK is sending ships there, they have anti-spyware, right? And they have Russian technology. Don't forget that. They are affecting Israel's defense systems inside of Israel. So they are, I heard those reports, but how effective they would be, that's the question here. So long as the resistance is still active, clearly they're not effective. They're not effective to the level that's desired. That is unless they have a different mission. And they're telling Israel, for example, our mission is to help you. But they have other objectives. Monitor, see what's happening, potentially use or not use, uses whatever it is, leverage, not leverage. Who knows? But so far, they have been complicit. The official British government policy, complicit in genocide. Zach saying, what are your thoughts on the US sending an amphibious assault ship called Hornet to Lebanon. Will they have boots on the ground? I don't think they will have boots on the ground. And if the aim is intimidation, they had the aircraft carrier that they withdrew, a couple of months in, when the risk was still there. They might obviously have boots on ground. It's not like they, I personally don't think so. If you look at Gaza, for example, the only boots on ground were the boots on the port. This ambiguous port that we saw what it was intended for. Inside, very, very limited, hardly any evidence. And again, you're talking about an area where the country that is involved in this genocide and this barbaric and reckless attack on everyone, all of the people, if their own people have no willingness to go and fight, I'm telling you, like we began this live stream, like I told you in other videos, and all of the statements from Israel, it's not from me, I'm sending them from Israel, people in the army, people who led divisions, people who had senior figures in Israel. If they're saying that, if the people are not willing to fight, if people are fleeing, if reservists are refusing to serve, why would an American go there? For the sake of what? Bibi Netanyahu, whose son is in Miami and in Guatemala partying. Do you understand what I'm saying? And you have more resignations as well from people who are serving. Kate is saying Gaza's starving. That's right. And people are dying of starvation. And people are dying simply because there's no medication. Some people are dying from basic diseases or wounds that could easily be treated. But because they have no medicine, no sufficient food, no sufficient anything, hardly any hospitals functioning. Illegal Israeli settlers look overfed. Yes, especially the ones who we see talk a lot of the time. Gulf states supplying food to Israel, you're asking? Yeah, they are. Through Jordan. That's why you have many protests in Jordan. So while they're starving the Palestinians, they are helping them against the blockade that is being imposed by Yemen. Jihad Al-Aidi, thank you so much, my brother. Thank you for your super thanks. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your membership as well. Marvin is asking me if I saw the US debate, my thoughts, comments. I thought it was a joke. I saw the parts that I wanted to see that were in relation to the foreign policies of the US. And nothing surprised us there. The people are both Zionists. Joe Biden has been complicit in genocide. Donald Trump just got a massive donation from Miriam Adelson. And what are we expecting? So, and I've been saying that to people from the beginning, because, you know, some people thought like Trump would come and make a difference or whatever. No, Trump only cares about Trump. I mean, there were some reports that he even owed Sheldon Adelson some money, and then Sheldon Adelson, in effect, bought the presidency with Donald Trump to implement certain policies. Sheldon Adelson supports Benjamin Netanyahu, or supported at least Benjamin Netanyahu. He funded media networks in Israel that belong or are aligned with Benjamin Netanyahu. Because Benjamin Netanyahu at one point was looking to purchase all Israeli media. He was on a hunt for every big Israeli media outlet. And he obviously established some of them. Fuad Comedian, thank you so much, my brother. And everyone else as well. Where did we reach? FP, what happened to the aid that was delivered by the pier, and why it cannot be delivered to the Gazans? Are there logistical issues for the UN? Is UNRWA allowed to function in Palestine? The pier was designated to support Israel and carry out these attacks. Now they apparently moved it to Sdoud. What do you mean move the port to Sdoud? Sdoud doesn't need a pier because it's already a port. Secondly, why would you have a pier when you have thousands of trucks in line? Simply tell Israel, stop blocking them. Simple. Then why it can't be delivered? Because Israel blocks it. Israel blocks it. They kill people, they torture people, they shoot at the truck. They do all of that. Are there logistical issues for the UN? Totally. Israel had dozens of attacks, if not hundreds of attacks on UN bases, UN shelters, UN schools, housing children and families, and they slaughtered thousands of people in UN buildings. They killed hundreds of UN staff. Is UNRWA allowed to function in Palestine? Hardly. They destroyed most of their operations in Gaza. They shut down their office in Jerusalem. They want to take them down because they know they're the biggest lifeline for Palestine. UNRWA was formed as a result of Israeli establishment. It was there to provide relief for the Palestinian refugees. 7 million in Gaza, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. And Israel knows that. That's why they fight them under so many false pretexts. And obviously countries follow suit, some countries. Obviously they stop the funding. Like this lie of the participants in the 7th of October from the UNRWA. We haven't provided evidence even. It was all politically motivated. Not bloody likely. Thank you for your super thanks. Miguel Garcia is saying the UK flights from Cyprus to Lebanon. I read that they are cargo military aircraft and landed in Beirut. The article wasn't talking about intel flights, but cargo. Even if that's the case, even if the case is cargo, what are they exactly going to do with the cargo? You see, Israel and Marvin Vergas, thank you again so much for your super thanks. You see, even if they have cargo going there, Hezbollah, they have eyes everywhere in Lebanon. So if the cargo is intended for a certain group, for example, for a coup, you already have attempts in Lebanon pushing for sectarian division. But on the other hand, you have people who have a lot of responsibility and counter that. And Hezbollah is at the forefront of it. They always have more of an open tone with other sects in Lebanon, other political movements, even when they talk about their political adversaries. What's Gallant's post-war plan for Gaza? That's from Kate. Now he has a new plan. Do you know what that plan is? Splitting Gaza into 24 areas. They live in La La Land. They can't split Gaza in half with all of their army in. And now he's talking about splitting them in 24. You cannot split Gaza in half. Hamas is operating and the Palestinian resistance is operating everywhere. From the most northern part to the most southern part, from the most eastern part to the most western part. And you've been there for almost 9 months. So you, with all of your military, cannot split Gaza in two. How are you going to split them 24? And he began again talking about having other forces, and now Netanyahu is climbing down the ladder when it comes to we won't accept a Hamas stand or a Fatah stand. Now he's willing to accept a Fatah stand all of a sudden. So Fatah coming back to Gaza. Not you, not Gallant, not Netanyahu. The only people who are entitled to say and decide what happens in Gaza are the population in Gaza. Whatever they want, whatever is suitable for them, whatever is suitable for their elected leaders, that's what happens there. No one else is entitled to say anything about Gaza. The only thing we should be talking about is Israel. Even from the day they started, be careful, you see, that's the thing. I always warn people with the terminology. From the first day they started using the term the day after Gaza, I told them, don't say the day after, you say the day after Israel. This is what we should be talking about. The day after the occupation, the day after apartheid, the day after violent Zionism, the day after crimes against humanity, not the day after a besieged place under blockade for 17 years with a population of over 72% refugees that Israel forced out of their homes, that it now calls Israel. This is the day after. Talk about the day after that. Talk about sending peacekeeping forces to Israel to make sure they can't have a genocide. Talk about having a blockade on them. Talk about them not being able to ever pose a threat to anyone in the region. Talk about them not obtaining any single ounce of weapon. This is what we should be talking about. Yet he still bangs on as if he's entitled to say anything. And you have clowns all across the world playing with him. Oh, Hamas shouldn't be in Gaza. Who are you to tell the Gazans who to choose? They democratically elected Hamas. Has Israel shown them a better alternative? Has the enlightened West showed them a better alternative? Has anyone protected them? No. Up until you take that task and show us your humanity and then don't talk even. Don't talk at all. You're not entitled to. You're not in a position to. And that's obviously aimed at the people who talk about, and this was his plan now, 24. Separate Gaza into 24 areas. The only thing that's being separated to areas is Israel. The north is now gone. South is half empty. But what half empty? Most of it is empty surrounding Gaza. People are fleeing. They want to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians. They're ethnically cleansing themselves in the process. And they're not succeeding, obviously, in the ethnic cleansing. Amir Khan, thank you for your membership, Amir. You're saying Mahmoud Israeli fighter jets flew over Beirut, breaking sound barrier and firing flares. This meant to scare the civilians and make them rise against Hezbollah. Yeah, it's meant to scare the people. But again, anyone in Beirut, anyone in Lebanon, if they still, are not sure, listen to what Gallant told you in November. He sent you a warning. He didn't warn Hezbollah at the time. He warned the Lebanese people. He said, we warned the civilians of Lebanon, we will do to the citizens of Beirut what we did to the citizens of Gaza. He's warning you. You've experienced occupation from Israel. You've experienced their genocide before. You saw what they did 2006. Kate, any news on ceasefire? Is it dead? Well, the US is adjusting the wording, making slight amendments in what is deemed as, or what's reported to be, Clause 8 of the ceasefire. And they are looking to use certain terminology that would give Hamas more reassurance. Because so far, they reportedly, everyone agreed on stage 1, but not stage 2 and 3. And stage 1 was supposed to deal with the final stages. So there is no progress to stage 2 unless stage 1 includes the fact that we are guaranteeing that it's going to be an ending of the war. Israel doesn't want to confirm that or admit that it did agree to it, because Biden said Netanyahu agreed. So they're trying to have this adjustment and send it back to Hamas. Hamas told you what they want, what the Palestinian people want. Simple. Israel ending the war completely, lifting the siege, allowing all aid in, all people back to everywhere freely, and obviously Israel withdrawing from every part of Gaza and rebuilding Gaza. So perfectly normal. They are worried about the security of the Palestinian people. They don't want to reach a deal and have the same problem they faced with temporary ceasefire, where Yoav Gallant went and signed the ending of the ceasefire. And by this signature, he went out to continue the genocide. They don't want to be in that situation again. And that's why they added the clause of having guarantors in the form of Russia, China, and Turkey. Because to them, the US is Israel. And they view them in that manner in a correct way, because US is Israel. They are the same. We're not talking about a couple of differences here and there, yeah. So instead of the US, again, putting the pressure fully, right, on Israel and asking its puppet states in Europe to apply the same pressure on Israel, you're still going to see this entitled genocidal behavior by Bibi. And that was from Kate. Marv is saying, what happened to the kibbutz that were attacked on 7th of October? Are they empty? Have Zionists come back? They're empty. They're totally empty. Israel is offering people a lot of money to go and work in those areas, because many of the places that were evacuated post 7th of October, and initial reports said 150,000 people left only from these areas. By the way, we're not talking about other areas. These areas are very important industrial areas. So a lot of milk is produced there. They have a lot of farms there. They have factories there. But now with the people going away and these places under threat and still, by the way, being attacked, you're talking about a lack of will from the people to work. So Israel has been offering more money for people to go and work in those areas. And despite that, people are refusing to go. Some people already purchased houses in other parts. Many people already left Israel for good. We have a similar scenario in the north. The only thing that's different with the north is that you need to add to the numbers. Why? Because Hezbollah's radius of attack, they said 3 to 5 kilometers initially. It's stretched to 4, more than that now. They said 85,000 left just in the first month in what Israel labeled as the area under fire, 5 kilometers within. And then they had people 5,000 kilometers, 100 meters away complaining because they are not entitled to anything, any government support, any alternative housing or what have you. But they also fled, but they don't get government support because the attacks are very near to them, and they also surpass them in many cases. So it's a very bad situation. Many people who lived in all of those areas in the north, in the south, said they will never come back. Like Israel released a report about a poll that they had with Kiryat Shmone residents, for example, in the north. 40% said we're never coming back to Kiryat Shmone. And that's what Israel reported. They usually don't report these things. And this sentiment is shared by most of the population in the north and in Gaza. Kate's asking about the West Bank. Yes, they are. And you said Israeli ministers begging Israelis not to leave Israel. I haven't particularly heard that, but there are obviously attempts to. Well, all of the cover-up is there to keep Israelis. If Israel reported everything as it is, you would have had way more people leaving. And they are still attacking in the West Bank, and they're escalating in the West Bank by not providing the funds for the West Bank Authority that's serving them. But they're so arrogant, like Smotrich, who's the finance minister, cutting the funding of the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority is the most loyal authority you have ever had. And they still talk against them. Now, Gallant, for example, and others in Israel are warning, if you escalate and if people don't get their salaries, including the security forces that abide by Israeli rules, that listen to Israel, then you are going to create a bigger problem. But he's still not listening. And now he is approving outposts, Jewish outposts everywhere. On every place a squatter sets foot, he'll declare it a settlement. Simultaneously destroying houses that have been there for decades for the Palestinian people. Which is something that they've been doing all the time. But now it's even more intense. But again, some people are warning because it's so sensitive. The last thing they need is for something to escalate in the West Bank. So instead of saying, hold on a second, we have an authority that is loyal to us in the West Bank, the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. We have a president who is loyal to us. Let's continue to support them. They'll do the opposite. Again, nothing makes sense. "1984 Sarajevo, thank you so much for your super thanks. And El Karaki brother, thank you so much for your super thanks. El Karaki is saying, looking good, brother. Looks like you've been working out. Much love. Thanks for your dedication. Thank you so much, brother. You have to work out. Come on, you're working out, staying healthy as much as possible. Thank you so much, my brother. Gerard is saying, Mahmoud, please, your opinions about fake nuclear weapons. If you're talking about the Israeli nuclear weapons, by the way, or which nuclear? If you're meaning the Israeli nuclear weapons, then they might have. I mean, we have had information to show that they have nukes. They had a nuclear program, reportedly over 300 warheads. It was an Israeli who leaked the program, who was then arrested. Vanunu. Previous Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, he indirectly confirmed that Israel has weapons, by the way. could be obviously fake, nuclear weapons at the end of the day, they're there for deterrence mostly, because people know that once you open that can, it's potentially global destruction. But there's a very big likelihood that they do have nuclear weapons. They threatened Gaza with them. A minister said we should use nukes on Gaza. So Marvin, West Bank are hospitals, most churches still functioning during this chaos. Any churches, most hospitals being attacked, destroyed? Yeah, some of them are being attacked. Israel has operations in hospitals. They go and kill people, assassinate them in hospitals, and kidnap them. You have, these, the picture that I shared on the community tab the other day of this Israeli soldier going in a mosque and going on the imam minbar and mocking everything. One of them was recorded throwing a grenade in the mosque when they were calling for prayer just for fun, and they're laughing at it. This is what they do. You're talking about immense levels of depravity, and their support is as if nothing exists. No, you're persecuting the people. No, none of that. Religious freedom, none of that doesn't exist. They do whatever they want to do. They shoot for fun in the West Bank. We've had evidence from people who served there and then started to publish what they do. Kate, Hezbollah published that Dimona will be part of the target plan. Do you think Israel will use nuke or bio? They have the capacity to do that. Desperation. And Lebanon, if they use it in a part that is further away from Israeli borders, then they will have less likelihood of being affected by it, obviously, if it's controlled. But again, if they open that can, how can you make sure that Hezbollah doesn't have anything of the sort? That's a valid question. How can you make sure that Hezbollah does not have very, very dangerous weapons? Does anyone know? No one knows. Do they really want to play that game? Do they want to? Are they that suicidal? They could. And with regards to Hezbollah having Dimona as a target, look, Dimona might be a front. The fact that it's like declared as a nuclear plant and so many people know about it means that it's vulnerable. Now, the Israelis are, I would assume, they're not ignorant to that fact. And if they had anything sensitive there, they would have potentially moved it. There are reports that Israel has certain nuclear weapons in certain parts of Israel that are very secretive, and in Israeli submarines, which is very typical for countries to have their nuclear arsenal in submarines, because if their country is attacked with nuclear weapons, they still have the capacity to attack with nukes from somewhere safe. So, but they can target it easily. The Palestinian resistance targeted Dimona. From Gaza targeted Dimona previously. But not with the accuracy of Hezbollah, that's the difference. Hezbollah, they have bigger accuracy. And Teshicom is asking me if they located them. I don't think, anyone knows the level of knowledge that Hezbollah has when it comes to Israel and if Hezbollah located anything to do with nuclear. Now, they might surprise everyone. I mean, the level of information that they have about Israel is unprecedented. So if they've had so much information to this date, and they've conducted so many accurate attacks on Israel, they publish this hudhud and all of the details, then they might have something. Who knows? What we do know for sure is Hezbollah have an incredible amount of intelligence on Israel. It's as if someone in Israel is working for them. I'm talking about inside the Israeli army. Not one, many, unless they infiltrated it already. Because they did certain things. This is what they did certain things before and while Israel was doing them. Like Israel would establish in the north, they evacuated the population. The Israeli army would establish a base in one of these locations. Hezbollah would detect them and target the room. The room. They would have a hidden unit, command unit in a populated area with no one knowing. Hezbollah would know that they're there. They will send a suicide UAV and land it. Like they did in the Western Galilee, taking down 16 of that command unit. Surveillance. Where did they get that information from? Where did they get that information from? This is something that worries Israel massively. Do they have people in Israel working for them? Have they hacked all of the systems of the IDF? Do they have such a high level of sophisticated surveillance? Do they have live info coming to them from Israel? What do they have? And if they have such sensitive information about such sensitive things in Israel to do with Israel's security and the IDF, why would they not have information to do with any potential nuclear? Now, I know that's more classified, less people know it. There's a chain of command and who operates and what info is given. It's not like a click of a button. And we know that. But what they've shown already, Hezbollah, proves that they are extremely sophisticated. They are extremely advanced when it comes to intel, not just attacks. And Israel knows that very well. They wouldn't talk about it a lot, but they know it very, very well. And Anwar Abu Bakr, thank you so much, my brother. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for your super thanks. And obviously everyone else who participated. Let me see if we have anything else before we wrap up. No, I think that was the last one. Okay, we'll wrap it up there. Apologies if I missed, by the way, some of your comments, obviously just because of the limit, but I do appreciate all of your input. Thank you so much for that. Special thanks to everyone who sent me super thanks. I really, really appreciate your support. So kind of you. Sumera, Daniela, Lime Fruit, Aini, Golden Sun, Imru, Jade, Ray, Marvin, Jihad, Not Bloody Likely, Sumera, 1984 Sarajevo, El Karakin, Anwar. Thank you so much for your super thanks. I really appreciate them. And thank you for the support. And thank you everyone else for viewing. Thank you for your time that you're spending with me, because time is very valuable. Thank you to all of our subscribers. Thank you to all of our members. Thank you to all of the new subscribers. And it was really nice being with you tonight. I will hopefully be with you tomorrow as well. Apart from that, enjoy the rest of your Saturday, or if you're in Sunday already, the rest of your weekend. Stay safe and blessed. I wish you all the best, and I will see you soon in the next video. Take care, everyone, and peace. Salam.